Oh, hello. Welcome. I was actually just texting you on WhatsApp. I didn't know you're joined. Welcome, Tosin and Victor. Good to have you again. Just to say again, this is just the back end. So I'm not transmitting live yet, but it's good to see you both again. So this is the second session for the two of you, and I mean, so far there's been some interesting updates. Of course, not so much, and I think this was the conversation I was having with Tosin earlier today when we had a call. That it's quite for many of the citizens, right, what's beginning to happen right now is that people are beginning to fill in the gaps because, the agitation is much, the enthusiasm is much, and INEC hasn't been able to fill in, in terms of communication, in terms of constant updates. So that's what we'll be discussing, just to kind of give you a preview of that. So I'm going to transmit live right now. Just a moment before I go live. Okay, welcome once again, everyone. With me today, I have again Victor Agboga, who is a political analyst with strong, I must say, strong expertise in the area of elections, political parties, and governance issues in Nigeria, especially. Of course, he focuses on other countries like Ghana as well. I also have with me Tosin Durola, who is currently a PhD candidate at the University of Edinburgh. He's also a political analyst. He was former special assistant on media and communications to the governor of Ekiti State. Thank you both for having me, right? There are lots of issues on front burner right now, but I'd like us to pick them one after the other. And I think you would agree with me that one that's been resonating, that's been repeating itself, in the mind of citizens is IREF. People have been asking the question, how did we get here? Did we place too much hope on IREF? Is this normal? Is this expected? And does this say anything about INEC's readiness? Or are we back to the days of 2007? I'll start with you, Victor.
Oh, thank you very much. It's good to be back. Unfortunately, I think I'm in a worse mood than I was yesterday. So yesterday, I had a bit of skepticism yesterday, but I was like, okay, let's give it time. Probably things will get better. But things actually got worse.
Right.
And I think the issue with IREF is that people are having problems uploading, and they don't know whether it's a deliberate problem or it's something with the system, with the technology. Because INEC claims there's nothing wrong with the technology, it's just people should just upload. But those at the polling units, the electoral officers are having problems uploading.
Yep.
And the voters are agitated. They think they are being deliberately being scammed because you want to be there when your result is being uploaded. So you're sure that they are imputing the correct results, right?
Right.
But if the results are not uploaded in front of you, anything can happen at the back end. And people want to make sure that the right results are uploaded. And there's also evidence, I must say, of people altering results as well. We've seen some screenshots as well, people altering results. So people are understandably agitated about the delay in the uploading of the results. Yeah. And that's why we do not see it reflected on IREF. And I think the platform as well is very difficult to use. It's not user-friendly. And with the large budget, I expected a better platform. My younger brother would do a better website than that. So yeah, it's quite disappointing, I must say.
Definitely. No, thanks for that. I think that was what I was going to pick on now, and direct that to Tosin, being a communications expert himself. I'd written about this quite all right, and I actually predicted some of the issues that are happening now via Dataphyte. And the upload rate is one thing, right? For presiding officers to be able to upload results. But then there are a couple of things that INEC just didn't prepare for. And part of that is the quality of what's being uploaded, right? So even if the results get uploaded, they are at the end of the day not useful to most citizens. And I imagine for most of us working with civil society, we're quite optimistic that this would help us actually, follow transparency when you're able to map results from every polling unit, even though it's not in machine readable format. We'll go through the pain of, entering the data manually. Do you think adopting technology was a mistake in itself, to say? I mean, maybe this is how I'm seeing it, but we'll probably be better off and we'll be able to assuage citizens better if we didn't put in, the technology variable,
I don't think technology is the problem. I don't think that the IRF thing is say that I don't know. I mean, since like Victor said, I mean, yesterday you would be thinking perhaps maybe it's a technical glitch or something, and maybe by this morning it will come up because if you look at the way governorship elections at state level, for instance, in Ekiti and also were conducted, and the what's it called, the results from polling units were uploaded. I think by midnight everything was already there.
Right.
Newspapers could on their own even project who was going to win by midnight before the INEC was going to do its proper collation at the state collation center the following day. But now, I mean, the last time I tried to even log into the IRF thing, I couldn't log in. Then I could log in. Then I was just seeing a static something there. But I don't think IRF is the problem. I don't think adopting this is the problem. Like I said yesterday, we need more innovative solutions to be able to bypass this ad paper trail and paper version that we continue to use. But still, I would also want us to, look at it in another way, not to overemphasize. As much as IREB will give every citizen the confidence, for instance, we vote in a polling unit with somebody, if you're campaigning for someone or you are rooting for someone, or perhaps even if you aren't rooting for anybody, you want to ensure that whatever it is that is done at polling units, there is somewhere you can verify. At least when they start the normal collation in Abuja, you can always cross-check that, okay, in my polling unit at this ward, this is perhaps the projected number. So when you get the overall master sheet and all, you can always say, okay, compared to this is it. But if you look at the new electoral act, I think this IRA thing is just more like a plus, to the confidence building for citizens, not more like this is actually part of the statutory process that once this is not uploaded or updated on that platform, then you can say that the election was, mad with this and that. And the INEC chairman has said that they are not using the IREV portal for declaration or collation of results, but rather what is input on the master sheet. And so that was why yesterday I was saying that, the most important phase, of course, voting during the election is a very important phase, but the most important phase is the movement from the polling units to the ward to the local government. And we were talking about magic and this and that. It's not about it's not totally about people changing results and that. If you, for instance, you have the major political parties, PDP, APC, Labour Party, NNPP. If you have agents of diverse political parties following through with, from the polling unit down to the ward level where these things are collated, there's always duplicate copy to cross-check down to the local government. It is easier for you to challenge at the state collation center that, Rec, sir, what this man said he collated in Kinikon ward level and this, at what level this was the dispute. This is the duplicate of what we had in the polling unit. If you do the calculation together, it does not, our own calculation does not tally with what this man is saying. But it becomes difficult when everybody just went home, and some people just carried the thing, and it's so difficult to do. So back to the IRFP, this would have been a kind of confidence building. Citizens on their own could have done their own projection. You can put together like Dataphyte, like Yaga, a whole lot of civic society platforms could have been able to do this. But now everybody needs to bank on whatever comes out of the position.
I think there's a very valid point to that, Tosin, in that INEC had already said this. I remember writing on this as well. That look, this is not going to be used for accreditation, for what do you call it, final tallying of results, right? But this is just a process to build confidence. And previously, what we used to have is the form EC60B, at the polling unit where it's pasted and people can see. But then, the assumption now that is that we have gotten more digital. That means we have raised the hopes of citizens. At least you should be able to deliver on that in the most basic sense. Before I came on this show, just a minute before, only 40,000 polling units had been uploaded. I mean, that could be fair enough. You could say we're at somewhere in between 30%. But then when you actually dig deep and you see that, I'm not sure the numbers are adding up, because out of those 40,000 polling units, less than 1,000 is clear. We have our data entry clerks everywhere. And so it's a frustrating process for civil society as well. And which brings me to the next question. IREV apart, there have been a couple of other issues that are traditional. So we are seeing the replay of violence, some of it outside the remit of what INEC could control. But even those that are, we are seeing polling units being cancelled, over 140 in Bayelsa. There are issues in voting was still going on in some parts of Lagos, like Lekki, early in this morning. So the question is INEC really making progress? Are we really living up to that democratic expectation? And maybe not to put words in your mouth, by the time we are done counting, maybe in 2 days' time, would we have been able to say this election was, maybe not to use the language free and fair, as many international observers don't like it, but would we have been able to say this was a, fair enough election, or, good enough election for us, seeing where we're coming from? Victor.
Yeah, I think one way of judging the freeness and fairness or the credibility of an election is also to check the previous one, if there's any improvement or not.
Right.
So we know it's not going to be 100% credible, or let's not use credible, but 100% free or something like that. But the issue is it better than the ones we've had before?
Right.
Then the problem is we're seeing a reoccurrence of problems we already know about. It means we are not learning from previous mistakes. Right. A very typical problem is the late arrival of officers, INEC, HADOC personnel to the polling units. So if they come late, we know that this thing will drag into the night. When it drags into the night, there's very poor lighting, and under the cover of darkness, lots of things can happen.
Right.
So we've seen this enact itself in several other electoral cycles. And we're thinking this is 2023. We're expecting something different. Yeah. And our hopes were raised, and the buzz and everything, and the confidence of INEC itself. I would have preferred a postponed election with everything intact than a repeat of what we've had before. So I just think this is a repeat of the normal everyday worries of INEC. And I'm like, what is the progress? Why budget more if we just have the same problems? So I feel I'm not impressed at all, to be honest. Yeah. And I think we've taken like 2 steps backwards, or 2 steps forward, 3 steps backwards. And then what is the point at the end of the day? I don't think there's any progress compared to previous elections, to be honest.
Right. Tosin, what do you think?
I have same opinion. The only difference is that in terms of this IRA thing, I think that's a plus. The challenge is that it doesn't really work well. During this time, it hasn't worked well. We're still facing the same logistic challenges, delay up to night, and you're still seeing occurrences of ballot boxes being snatched, and some videos being circulated of people, altering, and certain people were caught, and this and that and stuff. And there's still this perennial challenge of lack of communication. There's this, I think there's this concentration on this traditional method of briefing. The old press briefing in Abuja yesterday, they held another one this afternoon. But the major issues, fundamental issues that have created this more like anxiety, uncertainty, that of course when this happens, a lot of unscrupulous elements start feeding off it by through misinformation, disinformation, and the others and stuff. They could have come up and say something regarding this IRT. This is the issue. Is it that the server is down, or why is it that even the stuff, the materials that are uploaded, some have low quality? Because all these things it's not every citizen that understands that IREV is not part of the statutory process. It's just more like an add-on to the process.
Right.
And there isn't more like a critical engagement and constant response towards all these things. And you look at the INEC social media channels, you could barely find anything really significant as responses regarding all these things. So for instance, they are coming back 6 o'clock, and then when they get back 6 o'clock, the wrecks that are coming would have to settle down. So maybe 2 hours after that, then maybe a journalist asked a question and you responded, and that's how it is, because everything is about perception. It's not necessarily about what happens on the field, it's about how people perceive it. So if you don't communicate properly with people, if you're not using the bulk of the people who shape perception are on social media. So if you're not really engaging that platform to say, this is the issue, these are the issues, this is how we intend to resolve it, we apologize for this, we are making progress regarding this. I mean, not just because even if you have innovative solutions, even if you take on electronic voting, there could be glitches. There would be areas where things were not done well. It's about communication. So, I mean, it's still the same perennial challenge where, people just do what they like, and we just have to make up. I mean, maybe through this analysis, try to make sense of, so perhaps this is the reason why these people, why this, I mean, they could just say something, and that would help, douse the tension, because you can't overrule the fact that there's tension right now from not just about Labour Party, not just APC, not just PDP. There's tension because people really don't know exactly what's going on in regarding some of the areas where they are finding it very difficult to upload the material.
Yeah. No, let me just speak on that. Let's talk about something that's becoming quite a debate, right? So all through the day I've been following the news, and what's one thing that's been consistent, if you check some of the major, TVs, Arise TV channels and all of them, has been this sort of duality between, statutorily, legally, only INEC can pronounce results, can say, hey, look, this is the final result and all of that. But then when we're thinking about a democracy that's growing, right? And if you, let's take the American context, for instance. Typically, results also don't come until 3 days after the election. In fact, sometimes almost like 5 days after the elections, if I'm correct. And I wrote an article about this on Dataphyte as well, looking at several African countries in their last national elections. How many days did it take? Nigeria was sitting somewhere in the middle. So we had countries like, Cameroon, although it wasn't national elections, it was, parliamentary elections, taking like 10 days, countries like Zambia taking almost 10 days as well. So Nigeria is doing well, fairly well, taking 3 days. I mean, the last few elections have been 3 to 4 days, before the results are announced. Typically, citizens don't have this patience to wait, to want to tell me, okay, in Adamawa State, it was PDP who won, or it was the APC who won. Now, is there something democratically wrong with projections, as we're seeing with civil society? Because typically what you have in these other democracies, like let's say America, for instance, you find CNN has a live dashboard where you can see where and the GOP is winning or where the Democratic Party is winning, and it looks like we're trying to imitate this, although not necessarily. It's just pointing to the growth of civil society. Is there a problem with that? Because that's what INEC is actually sitting on now. If you listen to the chairman just this afternoon, he was saying only INEC has the power to declare results. That's fine. That's it coming in 4 days. But is there something wrong with the projections we are making as civil society organization? Is there something democratically problematic there?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong. Well, there might be a number of issues, but not very serious. I don't think anyone is contesting the fact that INEC has the final say. Right. But I wouldn't fault political parties or people from sharing results that they get their hands on. The only problem is the problem of disinformation. Right. That people could come up with numbers and share and to maybe to pepper their opponents or to do something else. So that is where the problem comes up. But I think since we know INEC has the final say, I think we can just use this one to just hold ourselves, to hold body till INEC announces the results. So I don't think it's a big enough of an issue, if you ask me. People are there at the polling units taking pictures of the papers, and now you also have the IREF, where you see a PDF copy of what happened in the polling unit, and people posting that. It's already just replicating information already present. So I don't think anybody is fighting with INEC on who gets the final say on declaring results, and INEC should concentrate more on the logistic problems that they have. And to the best of my knowledge, there are still a number of polling units that have not conducted elections at all. And that's very sad at this 2023. You still can't get to some polling units and not even communication at all. Going quickly back to communication, I think there should be a live feed from INEC. They should have a communication team that will be answering some of these questions. I know the chairman is busy doing other things, but I think he has a lot of people around him as well. There's a whole communication channel. I wonder what they're actually doing. Because as we've noticed, if there is no news from INEC, people start filling in their own thoughts and conspiracy theories will start coming up. So the communications team, I do not know what they're doing. I don't think they've, and I think the normal press briefings is just outdated. Of course, they could still do those ones, but come on social media, do a Facebook Live or something. Join Twitter Spaces. Let's know what is happening. But you just keep quiet as if, I don't know, as if you're not feeling the pulse of the people. You're not even responsive to the worries. It's just a little bit sad, I must say. Yeah, we are too old for this, I should say. We're quite too old for this. Yeah.
Tosin, I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, just time is like little things just happen. Perhaps maybe if civil society organizations and media start doing projections, perhaps maybe it takes away the excitement of everybody having to wait, stay glued to channels TV, Arise TV, and TVC waiting for. So when we declare Kano, when we declare Anambra, and it takes 2, 3, 4 days, they say, oh, we are joining to 5 p.m., we're joining to 7 p.m., we're joining to tomorrow morning, and everybody can sleep, waiting up, But the reality is that there is absolutely nothing wrong, like Victor said, with civil society organizations, media organizations doing projections based on real-time results coming out from verified INEC polling unit materials, signed materials forms regarding that. And it also helps. It's because we have a better democracy, to an extent, that we can, to an extent, even trust, INEC personnel regarding the result. If not, it would have been a different thing that people would perhaps be waiting for media organizations who are different polling units to tell them exactly who the accurate result from that area. So I think it helps because the media and the civil society organizations, they are more like watchdogs in a democratic enterprise. And there is nothing wrong with doing projections. And I think IREF is supposed to provide these organizations with something like that. But now that the thing is slow, so maybe I could go with Victor's assumption that perhaps it could be deliberate. So because if all the materials are on the platform, I don't think anybody will be waiting for somebody to make a declaration in Abuja. Yes. Everybody would have already gone to the street. Those who are ready to rejoice will rejoice. Those who are emotional would, and that's just. But I think perhaps it takes away the excitement. But it's not. It's outdated, right? The communication needs to be much more modern than the way it is. And this whole process of waiting and this thing is equivalent to what happens in Nigeria. You queue for everything, you wait for everything. So the presidential election is not supposed to take, and the way we are saying it, it's going to take like 2, 3, 4 days before you eventually know who exactly is the winner. I mean, I don't think that is the right way to go regarding it doesn't build confidence of the citizens, not even trust in terms of amongst people.
Yeah, right. No, thanks for that. Let's talk about political parties. Let's talk about the Labour Party. Earlier today, the Labour Party chairman, Julius Abure, he issued a statement to INEC urging it to cancel elections in about, I think, 4 or 5 local governments in Rivers State, due to, several issues that have been happening, in Rivers, thugs invading polling units and collation centers and all of that. Now, we've seen INEC do this. In Bayelsa, about 140 polling units were cancelled, places were cancelled in Lekki. But 5 local governments is a lot. And, if you see the cancellation that happened with Bayelsa and some other places, the INEC did that out of its own volition. Now we're seeing a political party urging INEC to cancel 5 substantial local governments. Does that say anything about the Labour Party's trust in the process? I mean, not to preempt you or put words in your mouth, but I'm beginning to think this way.
Yeah, I think it's about gathering relevant information and data to prove your case. I'm not a lawyer. But there should be a way of contesting results like this, making your case, even before going to the tribunal, before going to the courts. I think there is a mechanism of bringing INEC's attention to certain polling units as a political party. I think there's a mechanism for this. I know it was there before in previous elections. I don't know how it goes in this one. So I think it's a matter of gathering your data and making your case. And if INEC turns a blind eye to it, it's as simple as going to the courts as well. But understand the frustration, where I think even Atiku also said something like that INEC should upload results as soon as possible on the IREF to calm the fears of the people, so they can also verify their own polling units to make sure it is correct and things like that. So I think there's this suspicion generally, not just from Labour Party. But what I would tell the party is just collect data, collect evidence. If you think there's a malpractice somewhere, collect enough evidence and prepare for court. That's just it. And that's also what I'll say for now. Prepare to contest the election with your hard evidence.
Yeah.
Another thing would also be that, I personally don't see the the reason for the outcry actually at this stage that we are with a lot of states election are yet to be lots of results are yet to be declared, in terms of who is winning or not. And like I said, there's a process that starts from the polling unit, and of course it terminates in Abuja, but to an extent at the state level. And if you have polling unit, if you have polling agents, or agents, whether you have them at unit level or ward level or local level, you're supposed to have people who would move from polling unit to the coalition center at the ward level. So when you get to the ward level, what happens is that results from all the units are put together. So there you have your duplicate. You can say, okay, no, this doesn't tally with this. So right there at ward level, that is contested, and it is not a two-party system. There are like maybe 11, I don't know how many total number of parties contesting in this election. But there are a lot of different parties that are there, and they can also, object it. No, this is not it, and it will be settled there. It will be rectified there. And if that is not rectified, you still wait and get to the local government coalition center and raise the same issue. Or if there are discrepancies in terms of results coming from different wards, all the agents should have communicated themselves, and you can raise that there. And if that is not addressed, you wait till the state coalition center and you raise those observations again. And if there are discrepancies, you do that. So if after all those things and nothing is done, and they get to Abuja and you already have your people there, and they also raise all those things and nothing is done, then you can approach the court. It's different from you now releasing a press release. At this point, it just increases the tension, and I don't think it's really a smart way in terms of you wouldn't see that from the other major traditional political parties, because even if they do it, it's just for the genius. They know what to do, and I think it speaks more about following through these processes, because elections are still being conducted in certain areas and results are being collated. So it's not too late to start following through this process, so that it won't be like people are playing to the gallery and you're actually really doing the necessary thing. Now, like Victor said, it's about collecting the data, the information together, and at different points where you notice discrepancies, you challenge it, you contest it, you raise observation, and you follow it through to the last point. Then if you've exhausted all those measures, then you're free to approach the court.
Yeah, no, I think you've both raised a valid point there. One last thing before we go, because our time is fast spent. Let's talk about regionality. Now, I've decided not to call it the term people have been calling it, which, because I feel it's quite insightful. The idea of, tribalism, that's what's going on social media. And even on traditional media, people have been talking about it. There seems to be a trend of people voting along regional or ethnic lines. Now, I'm careful of my word choice, because this is not necessarily the case in certain places that don't have candidates, right? If you look at the North Central as a block, they might have candidates, but these are not the top four. But then the trend seems to be the case for most other well-defined region. In the Southwest, you see a high proportion of votes going for Tinubu. You see in the Northeast, with results coming in going for Atiku. Something like that. In the Northwest, you see some parts being Kokwan, so but then of course Tinubu is winning there as well. But the key point here is there any way out of this? Is it because, again, I understand Nigerians find this hard to reconcile, but is this normal in every other democracy? Because people make those kind of choices even in places that are more democratically developed than Nigeria, that I would vote for this person because I believe they are from my region. Is this something very problematic with Nigeria? Is this something particularly ugly?
Yeah, I think it's quite common in African democracies for people to vote according to ethnic groups. And there's a very interesting history behind it, colonialism. So colonialism created these artificial states where people from different ethnic groups were lumped together as one. And with this artificial bond, so at the end of the day, there's now this inter-ethnic competition among different groups, and also intergroup suspicion. So you feel if a man from the North becomes a president and you're from the South, you'll be disadvantaged somehow because he will favor his people than yours because of this intergroup competition. And that is why people just line up behind the person they trust more. And often the person they trust more is the person from the ethnic group or the religious group, because they feel if political positions are being distributed, the president might likely favor people from his group, or if there's a presidential scholarship, for instance. And there's evidence for this as well, that when the president emerges from a particular group, those in his kitchen cabinets are often those from his ethnic group, or those he gives some kind of privileged positions also from his ethnic group. So you can't blame people actually for voting for people they know, because there's a history of state bias in the first place. So this is a common trend, unfortunately, in many African countries, because it's about voting for somebody you think who has your interest in mind. And that might just be somebody that is a co-ethnic or a co-religious person. And I don't see this ending anytime soon, unfortunately. Yeah, I do not see it ending. Because even in the educated class as well, it's also very prominent there. So people will say, oh, with education, you would get off it, but that's not true. Education sometimes would even reinforce the bias you have. You now use logic to justify your ethnic leanings at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't see it ending soon, but I don't know if go ahead.
Before Tosin responds, I really agree with the point on colonialism. I'm trying to look at more recent history now. Does it maybe, this idea of what's the word again? It's like this unwritten constitution of power, power sharing. If it comes from the north, must go back to the south.
Zoning and the rotation.
Is that the root cause of this? Because I'm speaking with people on the streets as well. It's not just about them also believing that, oh, this person is from my tribe. It's also a thing of Yoruba Lokond kind of thing, which is probably a bizarre case to make. But Tosin, I wonder what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, the point raised by Victor in terms of religious sentiment, you can't overrule that. Historically, that's been part of. I think that has become a part of the identity politics we play in Nigeria. So that is something you can't overrule. It's there. It's described in daily practices and lives of a lot of people. The other thing that we shouldn't also overlook is how states are constituted in this election. You see that there are states that are controlled by the All Progressive Congress. There are states that are controlled by the People's Democratic Party. You have some swing states. Today it could be PDP, tomorrow it's APC. It just depends on whatever it is. Then you have states that are under the control of ABGA, like Anambra State. And if you look at how people would vote, when they say when politics get local, the interest, the dynamics change. It's not a national conversation anymore. It's about, if someone is going to vote, for instance, at a polling unit in the hinterland, is thinking about, what is our interest as a people? Are our interests being taken care of by local officials, by local leaders, by state leaders? Yes, we've met them. Okay, so good. I mean, who did they say we should, and when you want to vote, you vote for the party logo. So they say, oh, it's APC, oh, it's PDP, they just vote. And you have people like that. And it's easier for states controlled by political parties to try and galvanize people within that state to vote for their party. For instance, if you look at the way the results at different local governments in Osun has gone, you see that Osun is controlled by a PDP governor, and you can see that it was a highly contested in terms of the presidential election results in that area. And head-to-head. I mean, if you look at Ekiti, it's a bit there's a distant gap regarding that. But when you get to the southeastern part, like you just said, you see that things become very, obvious. And when you now look at everything, geographical spread of the vote compared to the candidates on the ballot, then you cannot overrule the ethno-religious sentiment regarding that. But there's still also that factor of incumbent control over states. But that doesn't always play out entirely like that, because we witnessed during Jonathan election in 2011, he swept almost all the states in the southwest that was controlled by the Action Congress. So so it may be both sides, and both can also that ethno-religious sentiment is a factor in how people think when it comes to elections. It's more like our local. If you talk about power shift to the south, you have people from the southwest who say it's our turn. Some would say from the south it's our turn. And don't be surprised when they do the collation in Abuja and you see the number of votes coming from southeast for a candidate, southwest for a candidate, northeast for a particular candidate. Then you now discover that maybe the region that will decide this election is the northwest and the north central, and maybe the south, But yeah, so
yeah. No, I mean, thanks a lot to you both for that. I guess one final one before we leave is it seems to me that the sense of democratic enthusiasm is high. I mean, judging from share numbers, again, like I always say, numbers are, they're kind of difficult to project within elections. But we saw about 7 million extra PVCs collected. I mean, as against last year, we had about 86 million registered voters. This time around, we had over 93 million. Now, does that say something about the citizenry? Is Nigeria, like, are people getting to take more interest in the elections? Of course, voter turnout is a different thing. And I'd want to say, and I think I put out a tweet on this, sometimes the concept of voter turnout in Nigeria is not just because people are not coming out to vote, is that people are actually unable to vote because of some of these logistical failings. There are polling units that as much as 1,000 people, with just 200 people being able to vote there. But the long and short of this is that, does it seem like citizens are getting more interested in the politics, or is this just an echo chamber of the middle class youth Sorosuke generation on Twitter who are very enthusiastic, and we're probably just caught up in that web? Go first.
Yeah, I think there is evidence that people are actually actively interested, and other people even pushing their friends, family members, and you even see churches and mosques increasing mobilization, urging people to go out. I think there was this video of a church saying you won't get in if you don't have a PVC or something. So there was this even grassroots mobilization apart from what we see on social media. So I think there was this aggressive, entertaining awareness and sensitization of people that go and get your PVC. If you're dissatisfied with the status quo, this is your time to change it. So I want to believe that there's this uptick in participation, but I think the numbers at the end of the day will reveal whether it's true or not. But my impression is it's probably the case that people are actually enthusiastic about the process.
Right. That's Tosin.
Yes, that's the same thing. And you find that mostly in the urban center, you find that there would be increased a number of voters, and mostly driven by young people who believe that there's a time they have to that they have to take their destiny. Seriously in terms of how things are run, how things go on in the country, and sometimes the figures too can be a bit deceiving. For instance, we look at the registered number of voters, and that comprises of people who are already dead, and people are alive. So so even if, for instance, in the polling units where you have 1,000 registered voters, accredited voters may not be more than 100 or 200.
Right.
But of course, if you're looking at the trends of, for instance, the last election, maybe it's just 10 new people that are added to this number. Actually, it may just be maybe 50, 70 people, maybe 50, 70 people after last election just felt like there's no point coming. You look at the way young people have been very, very keen, interested in mobilizing people, young people, older people to just come out to vote and that. But if you look at the hinterland, for instance, I think the only state that I'm aware of right now that the result has been collated, completed at the state level is the. But if you look at the voting, the numbers, there's a kind of, it doesn't speak to a large turnout, more like even a lower turnout compared to the governorship election that was recently concluded. So, but if you would look at what would come out from Lagos, what would come out from Abuja, what would come out from the city centers and all, you find, especially areas that are very highly populated by young people, I think you find increased number of voters and that also speaks to about fact of looking towards the subsequent elections on how things would pan out with this momentum, whether it can be sustained and whether the results would not lead to demotivation, because momentum has to continue for young people to be able to get exactly what they want regarding it. It's not a sprint like some people would say.
It's a marathon.
like political analysts, political analysts and scientists like Victor would say, it's a marathon. It's not
Nigeria is a marathon.
Politics is a marathon. You can be defeated, you still have to keep on going. Yes, undeterred. Yes.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot, Tosin Durola and Victor Agboga, for joining us. It's been 2 sessions with you both so far. They've been both excellent, and thank you so much. And to our audience, you can still follow us on elections.dataphyte.com. You can follow our social media handles as well on Twitter, on Facebook, and YouTube to see what we've been up to. Results are beginning to come in, but again, just to flag as a sort of caveat that the final authority on results is INEC, but we're doing our best to process and collect results based on what we have from IREV and some of our, analysts on the ground in the 774 local governments. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you again at 9 p.m. Nigerian time. Bye.